Death of the late, great Kobe Bryant. Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others died in a helicopter crash north of Los Angeles a year ago. Kobe was just 41, very much in his prime and seemingly embracing his post-NBA life as a dad and businessman. It was the kind of news that sounded impossible, hard to comprehend then and even now. And Candace, you knew Kobe really well. How do you reflect looking back, not only on that horrible day, but on Kobe's life?
You know, it came a time last year when Ledlow and I were starting our podcast, and we were in search of a guest. And I received a text message after a game I had done in New York. It was a preseason game, and Kobe said, "Good job, Candace. Way to do the game." And then I asked him, I held my breath and was like, "Hey, you think you'd be our first guest on the podcast?" He said, "Absolutely." And honestly, I think the legend on the court, we were able to see his gift, his passion, his energy, his work ethic, his Mamba mentality. But off the court is where he succeeded in my eyes the most in terms of just his growth, his ability to do better, his constant seeking of perfection, knowing that it's not going to be perfect, but constantly seeking it. And that's not just as a basketball player, but as a father, as a husband, as a mentor. And so I think we've seen the impact of his imprint he's left on this world through the game of basketball. But in women's basketball in particular, I know the NBA had him for 20 years, but women's basketball, he was ours for the last 3-4 years. And even before that, I remember talking to him about, as a women's basketball player, and he'd be like, "Why do you keep saying women's basketball player? You're a basketball player. You're a baller. That's what you do." And I just am really thankful for the times that we've had and the messages and the legacy and the blueprint that he's left behind. Because there's not a lot of individuals that can leave an entire blueprint of what his intentions of doing. And I just think all of us need to carry that on. And my thoughts and prayers are with Vanessa and the girls. We love you so much, and we'll always be here for you.
And Kobe's impact was far greater than the sum of his resume, Grant, and more far-flung as well. Perhaps in part because of his own international background growing up in Italy, perhaps because he came about as a star in the internet age when folks all around the globe could see him. He was an enormous international star. What do you think his ultimate impact on the game was?
Well, Matt, you said it best. I mean, he was a star. He was a star before he was a star. I mean, I remember, meeting him in high school, his senior year, and then watching him come into the league. And before he was, able to ascend to these incredible heights, he had that it quality. He had that, you wanted to watch him, and you knew that he had something special. And of course he delivered, and, just incredible. I mean, Candace said it best. He had a blueprint. He was focused. He was, a lot of people say they want to be great. They want to be an MVP. They want to be the best. But not everyone is willing to put in the work and the sacrifice and the commitment that's necessary to do just that. And Kobe, at such a young age, knew exactly what he wanted. And he was very thoughtful. He was very intentional, very deliberate in terms of how he went about that. And I think, as his career sort of wound down at the end, I think we all sort of, as fans and people all over the world, really grew to appreciate and understand, just how magnificent, his career, his story was. And, as he transitioned from playing and retired, it's fitting that he became a storyteller, because his life, his legacy was, while he was on this earth, was just a beautiful story. His growth, his evolution, his authenticity, going from this sort of young player trying to find his way, trying to learn how to fit in with older guys, to now, at the end of his career, influencing an entire world, an entire generation in the NBA. And so, there's so much to admire about the player, the man, the business person, the family that he built together. And, we're all just terribly saddened and still just in disbelief that, the great Kobe Bryant is no longer with us. But he's still within our hearts. He's in our minds because of the great work that he did.